What's up, disc golfers? Joe here with Joe's Disc Golf, and I know last week I said I was going to have 2 shows. Well, life finds a way to ruin your plans sometimes. Even with the best of intentions, the best of planning, things can sometimes go to hell in a handbasket in about 30 seconds or less. Turns out, on a highway to hell, as the legendary AC/DC sang, on a highway to hell. And that's how it feels right now. But so we've got so much to talk about. We're talking about the MVP Open, which is done and gone, the DGPT Points Champion, potential picks for Player of the Year, a fantastic Jeff Spring interview, and of course, as you may or may not have heard about, the slight shakeup or the slight issue that has happened, the dust up on social media about Natalie Ryan winning another FPO tournament. That's right, Quillette, which is a publication I've never heard of until it was brought up on the Foundation Disc Golf podcast Grip Locked, which if you aren't listening to that, I'd be surprised. You should always just listen to this one first. Obviously, listen to this one first. This one's clearly the best option because this one has a Joe in it, and to be a successful #1 podcast, you need Joe in the name. If I've learned anything from Joe Rogan and podcasting, it's that you need to have Joe in the name and Joe host it. But before we get too far into the weeds here about podcasting and all that fun jazz, we've got to thank our sponsor. Sitting behind the wooden desk here, sponsored by Log. What rolls downstairs? A loner in pairs rolls over your neighbor's dog. What's great for a snack and it fits on your back? It's Log, Log, Log. It's big, it's heavy, it's wood. It's better than bad, it's good. It's Log from Blammo. Hashtag not a real sponsor. I feel like I have to clarify that sometimes because I forget that while I am a product of the 90s, Ren and Stimpy was something that was shown to me probably at a far earlier age than should have been. However, there were plenty of jokes in there that flew right over my head until I was much older. And then it got to be an even better, funnier show. Especially Powdered Toast Man. Trying to work that into this. But I digress. We need to talk about the MVP Open. Simon Lizotte wins again. 4 wins. 4 wins. Puts him right up there with Ricky. You know what else he has in common with Ricky? Not a single major win. That could change this weekend as you listen to this. As this gets published, the second round will have already, maybe currently, or just about to play for USDGC. Not going over the gimmick that is the course at Winthrop. Not going to get into the gimmicks, although the mozzarella sticks are gone. Replaced with spooky Christmas trees with cobwebs over them. You have successfully failed at what you had tried to achieve. That's how I feel about that. Anyway, getting away from that. So Simon Lizotte wins, goes to playoff. It was awesome. It was good stuff. Great stuff. MVP Open. Again, it's a playoff in name. I don't really know what that changed. Some people got in to the DGPT Points Championship. I don't think there are any USDGC qualifier spots at that. Probably not because it's MVP Open. And if your tournament's title sponsor is in the name, MVP Open, Dynamic Discs Open, Discraft Great Lakes Open, I'm sure there's a Prodigy tournament that I'm forgetting about that, we kind of dropped the name off, but, Innova remembers because Innova runs USDGC, and so they're not going to give out any qualifier spots at those elite series that they don't run or is run by a direct competitor, or at least a title sponsor is a direct competitor, because seriously, why? That's so dumb. So random ass A tiers in the middle of nowhere are qualifiers, but I digress. So Natalie Ryan, as I mentioned at the start of this program, also won. Huge controversy. Natalie Ryan's second second Pro Tour win, the other being D-Glow. At the time, I don't know how Natalie is doing at Throw Pink Women's Championship. That should be a major. It should be US DGC and USW DGC should be held at the same time. I get what they did originally when it was trying to promote US DGC with the big amateur side, or USW DGC with the big amateur side, trying to get that all up and going, trying to help promote women in the sport and all that fun jazz. It's all well and dandy, but now it is giving you a crappy product for a women's major. Maybe you do something on the weekend before, the weekend after, sometime there with the amateurs where a lot of the top level pros come out, volunteer, help out, do something, have signings, have clinics, have something. But they need to do something better for USW DGC. If it's still a rotating major, fine, cool, whatever. It's up to the PDGA. They can screw up anything. Don't worry. They can burn water. I believe in them. You tell them to boil a pot of water, they will successfully burn it. And somehow, I don't know. That's that. The commentators had mentioned that the PDGA did not approve their aggregate playoff situation here. What they wanted to do was after hole 18 for a tie, go back to hole 1, play hole 1, go to hole 18. If there's a winner, great. If there's not a winner, then it goes to sudden death. I think that would have been a great playoff there at MVP. That would have been so much fun to watch. However, it was submitted a bit late. However, it did get into a meeting where they said that they will have to discuss it more. What's there to discuss? And the way the rule was read to me, it sounds like the tournament director can do kind of whatever the hell he or she wants. But I guess whatever. It made no sense to me. So like, why does that matter? Now, obviously, you don't want people going nuts, going bananas and going, all right, now we're going to play 18 holes as our aggregate playoff. No, baloney. Cap it at, make a special rule for the DGPT, for the Pro Tour. Make a rule in there that says if you want to do an aggregate playoff, it's 3 holes max. You can do 2, you can do 3, you can't do 4. You go 3 holes max, aggregate playoff. If there's still a tie, then guess what? Then you go to sudden death. Maybe you just continue. Maybe it's holes 1, 2, and 3. And then from there on, it's 4, 5, 6, whatever, however you want to do it. Maybe it's just 3 holes. Maybe it's just the 2 holes like they wanted to do at the MVP Open, where you hole 1, hole 18. Then if there's still a tie, you go back to hole 1, but it's sudden death this time. That would have been a lot of fun. That would have been really cool to see. That would have gained a lot more interest in this instead of a 1-hole playoff. And it was like, well, woo, 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 good job. Yay, A+ everybody. Woo, we did it. Yay. Crowd goes wild. Hey. Oh. I throw my hands up. Get Swifty in here. I am loopy. I just came off of a long work day. So guys, hang with me here. Hang with me. And I get it. You probably want to play this podcast at 1.5, maybe even 1.7 times speed. But I do occasionally talk fast. So you're going to have a lot of fun with this one. Try to keep up with this. I had to. DGPT Points Championship. So not much to say about MVP. Not much going on there. Didn't find out anything new that we didn't already know. People got cut that aren't going to be in the Pro Tour Championship. It is what it is. I think the name of the playoff event is kind of, I think calling them playoffs is kind of stupid, to be completely honest. I've said this before, and I get it. They're trying to do something new. And maybe it will evolve. But right now, who cares? Like, it did not. The players had mentioned, as I said in the last podcast, the players had mentioned, this didn't really feel any different than a normal tour stop. There's nothing special about it. Woo. There's no extra spectators. There's no extra anything. There's no pomp and circumstance. The commentators did do a good job of letting you know, and you just did this as well. At the end of the round, hey, if the tournament stops today, this is who made the cut. This is who didn't. This is who's on the line, who needs to play well. This is who's on the line and just in, and they can't screw up. You screw up and you're out. You're out. Gone. Bye. Bye, Felicia. Whatever. Ricky Wysocki is your Pro Tour points champion. Big surprise there. I mean, he was by far the most consistent player there. However, Paul was there. He barely beat Paul by 4.45 points. But played two less tournaments. So you had 2 less drops because it's just over your 8 Elite Series plus the 2 playoffs, which they both played. So, whatever. Plus the 3 Silver Series. You play more than that, they get dropped. You keep your best scores. That's pretty good. You play well at the majors, and those count for more points. I mean, at one point, one of the majors, Paul missed the cut, and shit happens essentially, but that got dropped for him. So he replaced it with another high scoring event. However, it wasn't quite enough to topple Ricky, and Ricky, being who he is, says that, and he said it a lot. He's doubled, tripled, quadrupled down on his statement, saying that the most important thing to him is to be consistent, to be the DGPT points champion at the end of the year. Majors be damned, essentially. Worlds be damned. Just because you win one tournament does not make you the best player in the world. So he says. That is a paraphrase, but, that's essentially what he meant there. What is more impressive, in my opinion, is Kristen Tatar and her DGPT points victory. She beat Paige Pierce by 77.67 points and played 4 less tournaments. Kristen Tatar had no drops. Paige Pierce dropped 6 events. 6 events. You want to tell me that Kristen Tatar is not a lock for the player of the year at the end of the year? Not just the points champion, but the player of the year? Because holy crap, her average finishing spot is less than 2, if I'm remembering correctly. I think this year so far in Elite Series and Majors, she's gotten first, second, and I think like 1 third place finish. So her average finishing spot is bonkers. It's amazing. I can't believe it. She's just coming over here, just going, whah, bam. I'm Kristen Tatar. What up? Beat me. Oh, I didn't play great. Oh, that means I only won by 4 strokes. Wow, man, I'm slipping. Man, she dominated. And when she wasn't, it was right there. It was right there. 1 stroke here and there, a better tree kick, a chain out sticks, something like that. Kristen missed a large chunk of the season and was dealing with this elbow issue, this undisclosed elbow issue that, as she has stated through many different interviews, whatever is going on, she hasn't said exactly what, but she can't make it worse by playing through. In fact, she said was it an Upshot interview? I can't remember the exact interview off the top of my head, but she did say that if she takes a day off, it actually hurts more to get back into it. So she basically plays every single day. God love her. Man, that is impressive. That is crazy impressive. So in my opinion, there's nothing Paige or Katrina or anybody can do to topple Kristen Tatar in terms of her being the points or to be the player of the year. On the men's side, that gets a little tricky. That does. I think it's a 3-horse race right now, as you've probably heard other people say. And as you're probably thinking to yourself, you're going, okay, it's Paul, it's Ricky, and it's Simon. Those are the 3 people. I think that depending on how they finish here at USDGC, we'll probably have a good idea. We'll probably know by the end of Sunday, we should know who is going to be our player of the year. I honestly think if it's one of those 3 who wins it, that's who it's going to be. If none of those 3 win it and no one falls apart completely, I think there's still a strong argument for most of them, but I think your best bet would still be Ricky. I think that's in my opinion. I think that is what is going to happen. I think he's going to get it. I think this is going to be his first USDGC win. Again, I haven't looked at the results yet. I don't know how round 1 turned out. And my luck is he is probably crapped the bed and all the way down at the bottom. And that's just how my luck rolls. That's the way the cookie crumbles. Cookie crumbles. Walter Cronkite. So who knows? Very impressive though for Kristen Tatar. Just absolutely dominating. Absolutely dominating. One more final thought that I had about Ricky is my thought is that probably in his contract, there's some kind of bonus for being the DGPT points champion. I mean, I'm sure there's bonuses too for winning majors, but I bet you that he put a lot of eggs in that basket. And who knows? With the way modern disc golf is right now and how things have changed since COVID, with how there's so many more winners in MPO. And to a certain extent, FPO has a decent variety. It's fun to see. You don't know who's going to win because on any given tournament, there could be 5 or 6 guys jockeying for the win. It's no longer the Paul and Ricky fest, where if one of those 2 guys is there, one of those 2 guys is winning. But now it's multiple people. I mean, look at just this year. You've had Paul win, you've had Ricky, you've had Simon, you had Drew Gibson, you had Gannon get credit for a win that he didn't get. Oopsie doops. Bad interview. It happens. It happens to the best of us, but we learn, we move on, and go from there. Speaking of an interview, Jeff Spring was interviewed by The Upshot, and he had a lot of fun things to say about Disc Golf Network, the Disc Golf Pro Tour, and things like that. He talked about how the schedule is going to be dropped this week. It was. We're not talking about it. I think it's been beaten to death. That's something we'll go over here in a future episode where we have more time to really just break it down and go from there. So in this interview, he disclosed that they have crossed the 40,000 subscriber threshold. And now, assuming they all have the discount, assuming they all have the PDGA discount, which, maybe they're not going to release those numbers. But just assuming that, they're making roughly $240,000 a month. A month. That's a pretty big chunk of change right there. Roughly, they're making about $3 million a year. I mean, it's a little less than that. Could be a little more than that. That's just going rough math right here. Just from that, that's pretty great. That's pretty impressive, and it goes to show that they're reinvesting in this. They had mentioned that they were hoping to be profitable by this year. They are not because of the issues with the gas prices. Blame whoever the hell you want, but you can't deny that they have gone up. And that's going to cost more to their bottom line because they have to ship all this stuff everywhere from wherever they're going. They can't just, they can't pull a Chris Dickerson and go, yeah, I'm not going to California. I'm not going over to the West Coast. I'm not going to Oregon. I'm not going up that way. I'm just not doing it, guys. Sorry. Ain't happening. They go to everything and the Silver Series, where a lot of the pros kind of skip them. But it is what it is. They do plan to air the Tour Championship on ESPN2. Now, obviously, that's not going to be the same time. They will have to pay probably a pretty sizable chunk of change. So make sure that if you have ESPN2, make sure you watch it. Make sure you tweet about it. Make sure you let ESPN know that people are watching this so that they know that this is a good idea to keep putting it on. And maybe the price comes down as advertisers get in and all that fun jazz. But you guys got to make sure that you watch, or at least say you did, just tweet it, go, hey, ESPN, it was so cool to see Disc Golf Pro Tour out there. This is awesome. Hashtag goals, hashtag awesomeness, hashtagging, hashtag hashish. So that was pretty cool. He also mentioned that he did the Disc Golf Network in general. When I say him, I just, I mean the Disc Golf Network, the Disc Golf Pro Tour, turned down some exclusive offers to be put on certain networks. He did not mention any specifics to that, but it was pretty cool to see that they are looking out for the subscribers because they felt like that was what they're supposed to do with that. And that they're supposed to that they did not want to abandon their base because honestly, if it didn't work out and it, depending on where they go and what they charged, that could have been pretty bad. That could have been pretty deadly and detrimental to the Disc Golf Network and Disc Golf Pro Tour as a whole. Who knows? I don't know. It could have been different. It could have been all right, but maybe they wouldn't be at 40,000 subscribers right now. Pushing up to 50. Who knows? That is a lot of money that they're dealing with right there. So, and speaking of loyalty and all that, they currently this year and up for the past couple of years, they've operated on a yearly contract for their commentators. For next year, they are moving away from that model. Can't imagine why. Who knew? I don't know. Maybe there's a controversy or two around one specific commentator, Elaine King. Don't worry, she'll be coming up later. We'll be talking about her later with some insights from the medical committee. And I have it on no authority that it was her umbrella there that helped Ricky Wysocki. I'm kidding. Like I said, I have it on no authority. I don't even believe that happened. So they did say that the Disc Golf Network is unlike any other network, any other broadcast, any other anything, where at the drop of a hat, if you sneeze the wrong way, see ya, you're fired, you're gone. See ya, don't let the door hit you on the way out. But at the Disc Golf Network, for better or worse, I have to admire that they stuck with their commentators, that they stuck with their contract, that they fulfilled their contract for the year. And, I got to give them credit with that. I can't say it was the wisest move, but I can say that from an employee side of it, that's pretty darn nice of them, to say the least. That they had made that they're like, no, we signed a contract. We're going to live up to our end. Obviously, I'm sure there's things in there like, if you are, in jail for something, you're probably not going to be a DGN commentator for long. But in this situation, nobody went to jail. Nobody got hurt. It could be argued things had happened. I don't know. Who knew? Whatever. But it is, I will say, that is impressive given what the outcry was. So, yeah, like I said, I can respect someone who has that kind of, someone or an organization who has that kind of commitment, outward commitment. So, bravo to them. I tip my hat to you, good sir. But I should say that this should be a learning experience where your contracts are, and they said that they're going to move to a, maybe a 6-month contract or a 3-month contract, something where it's like, all right, we have our outs. If something happens, we have our outs, rather than just canceling a contract, which I would imagine is probably pretty difficult. It'd be easier to just go, all right, well, we're just going to ride this out. You're with us for another 2 months and peace. Not going to happen anymore. Epic Games sponsorship. That was, you may or may not have seen it. I thought I was going nuts because I thought I saw an announcement from the Disc Golf Pro Tour about Epic Games. And I came back like an hour later and I was like, did I dream that? What happened? Could not find it. Tried to search it. Could not find it. Come to find out, it was a draft statement that was not supposed to be released at the time. It was for the Portland Open. They are based in that area. Some higher ups in their advertising arm are big disc golfers, so they want to do that. It's pretty cool because they've got a lot of money. They're outside of disc golf. Maybe we get some kind of cool Fortnite thing. Maybe they make a disc golf game, Mortal Kombat Disc Golf Edition. Finish him. Whang! Stiletto to the face. Well, that's actually, no. More like Boatman to the face. There you go. Boatman to the face. The gnarly ball crusher. Listen to the Half in the Bag podcast, and you'll understand that reference. It is part of the line of discs that we are slowly developing. Anyway, back to this. So, the schedule, as I mentioned, well, there are new events. There's some that have got promoted. There's some that got relegated. You know, some of them have moved up from the Silver Series. Some of them have moved down to Silver Series, which are now Silver events. And then they're moving some of them that aren't there anymore. And that's just kind of the way that goes. Maybe they didn't perform well. Maybe the courses have been outgrown. Maybe it's just, who knows? I don't know. There are a whole bunch of different reasons that it could be. They want to continue to grow in Europe, and they will. They have now PCS Sula and the European Open. Well, the European Open's a major, but Sula is now an Elite Series stop. So it's not just, well, I'm skipping a major. I'm skipping an Elite Series and a major all at the same time. I don't know what they mean totally besides that. It sounded like the way he phrased it, the way he talked about it, the way it was discussed was that, I don't know, is it going to be trying to compete with the European Pro Tour? Is it partnering with them for more of these events? Or is it just going to be promoting the Disc Golf Pro Tour / Disc Golf Network in Europe? Are we just going to be like, hey, here's a bunch of ads during the European tour, like here, pay us some money to watch this? And are we going to see maybe some European Pro Tour Network ads here so we can watch some of the stuff there? I don't know. They're still working on getting qualifying series into the tour card. They're putting the finishing touches on that. Nothing has been announced that I've seen, at least since the time of recording here. So who knows what's exactly going to happen with that. I thought they were going to roll the silver series or the silver events, the SE Disc Golf. It's a special edition. I thought they're going to roll that into some kind of qualifying situation, but I guess not. That's okay. They're doing what they're doing. Maybe it'll be the bronze tour, and we'll go around bronzing around the regions. It would be smart for them to break it up regionally. And, here you go. Or here's some A-tier affiliated, high-level A-tier affiliated, where, if you do well, you get tour points, but you strongly discourage touring pros from showing up to those. That's why you make them A-tiers or bronze events and just go, if you're a tour card holder, you cannot play a bronze tour event. Sorry, just can't happen. Just can't happen. Who knows? It will be a trial run. He did want to emphasize that whatever they do this year will be a trial run. Like they do every time they roll out something new, it's a trial and they grow and change it and, go from there. Pro Tour majors, the Pro Tour, and the Disc Golf Pro Tour and Disc Golf Network are only responsible for media coordination, media policies, and media rights. They do help out with some operational support and spectator management like parking, ticketing, gating. But for the most part, they also run the tour card benefits, the Disc Golf Strong, autograph area, and so on. But for the most part, it's the PDGA who runs and royally screws it up, usually. No offense to the local TDs. I believe the local TDs, the people who put in the bids for the majors, do as good a job as possible. But as we saw with Pro Worlds in Utah, PDGA comes in and just does some random crap, and then the tournament director gets shit on when he or she probably doesn't even know what happened. Probably does not even know what happened. So who knows? On top of that, we've got the DGPT disciplinary issues here. They followed the part of their agreement for taking over the national tours. They followed the PDGA disciplinary process, and they agreed to follow all the PDGA rules. So despite no matter how many and who calls for changes where they need to change some of the rules that make no sense for the Pro Tour, well, that just ain't happening. Not anytime soon, at least. So the whole disciplinary process does not involve any feedback from the Disc Golf Pro Tour. It has needs outside the normal PDGA rules, as I just mentioned, but they decided that, Disc Golf Pro Tour has no say in whatever happens there. They're looking into fines starting in 2023. They set together a committee with touring pros and a few other people to uphold professionalism for off course. So this is off course issues for fines because the PDGA does not do anything with that. What would be smart would be doing a percentage of tournament winnings somehow that way, where it'll affect so many people, so far. It'll be more appropriate, because fining Ricky Wysocki $5,000 is like, cool, whatever. I just lost 50 grand on Bitcoin, so what's another 5 grand? Where, someone towards the bottom, who I can't think of any names off the top of my head because they're towards the bottom, 5 grand means they're done. They can't tour anymore because that's all their money. That's probably all their money to get to a couple tournaments with food and all that stuff. So who knows? We'll see. They're working with the PDGA for on-course behavior, get them to recognize differences for tour card holders, so there's no double standards or anything like that. Because what's good for me as an amateur, or even a local pro, not myself, but even as a local pro, a punishment for us isn't that big of a deal. Like, oh, you can't play a sanctioned tournament for 6 months. And I'd be like, okay, well, let's see. I played one. I played a sanctioned tournament last weekend. Probably won't be playing a sanctioned tournament until May. I might play in December, depending if the end of the year bag tag challenge is sanctioned or not for our club. If it's not sanctioned, then the next time I'll be playing a sanctioned event will be probably 9 months from now. So you telling me I can't play a sanctioned event for 6 months? I don't care. I really don't care. But who knows? Yeah. So for GMC, well, for those courses, they're redesigning a few holes for Worlds, because going forward, if you're holding a major, you cannot hold a Pro Tour stop, which is great. Because as much as I liked watching the course, Emporia Country Club and Jones Supreme, Cutlass Supreme, Chicken Supreme, gonna count 1, 2, 3. But, going there twice for Worlds and DDO, it's not that great. I will admit that. They will be trying to add some parking, change some parking, and trying to learn from past mistakes with crowd control, trying to put up more ropes so it is a more deliberate effort for a spectator who crosses a fairway or something like that. Like, dude, you had to lift the rope out of the way. You didn't just happen to wander in that one way or wander in that other way, and you happened to stumble through a path that nobody thought to use or nobody knew about, and you ended up where you shouldn't be. Now they're going to put ropes everywhere and have tons and tons of rope. They said that they started the year with like 5,000, 6,000 feet of rope, and now it's over 50,000 if I'm remembering the numbers right. So they are learning. They are getting better. I will give them credit. Where the PDGA would probably just look at it and go, yeah, what am I supposed to do about it? Yeah, I don't know. Which that also rolls into Umbrella Gate, trying to make it more obvious where you can and can't go, doing something like DDO/Worlds. They had ropes everywhere. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of feet of rope. So next year, what they're also hoping to do is for the DGPT points winner, other than getting pretty sick trophy, or at least getting a picture with a pretty sick trophy, they will pay out the top 3 spots, and obviously you win tiebreakers when it comes to the Tour Championship. Now, we're getting into the spicy part of this episode, so if you're listening to this on YouTube, I can't guarantee how much of this next part you're going to see or hear, because YouTube might just block this content. I'm being dead serious about this. I'm not trying to go, I'm going to be discussing an article from Quillette that talks about transgender women in disc golf. So if this ends up getting blocked by YouTube, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. I've been Joe. You've been awesome. Don't forget to check me out on all the socials, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that fun jazz. You can also listen to this on anchor.fm/Joe's Disc Golf, or wherever you get your podcasts. So if this ends now, then go over, listen to the audio podcast. That's about all I can say. So that is your warning. I will have a link in the description below for both the podcast and for the article. This is at Quillette.com. So going into Quillette, it's an Australian-based cultural commentary online magazine. That's what they have said on their online About Me page. I've never heard of them before. Griplock mentioned it. The article on the podcast, when I did a Google search for it, there was some random disc golf site that just literally copies and pastes and steals other people's work and posts it up there. They haven't copied any of my stuff, so I guess it's not that good. And apparently there was a Breitbart article that was basically just summarizing and giving slightly different commentary. So the article was called Disc Golf's Leah Thomas Moment. Two FPO players talked with this author on the conditions of anonymity. I'm not a fan of anonymous complaints. I think I don't like them. I hate that they've become so commonplace in general. But at the same time, I understand that these are touring professionals. And even if they're legitimate, valid complaints, not attacking a specific person, just going, hey, we should look at X, and not going, person Y is a stupid head. But we just say, like, hey, we have concern X. We want to know, just in general, how are we taking care of this? Then that's fine. Attacking a person specifically, that's no go. That's terrible. And reading through this article, there was no specific, like, hey, this is it. This is, whatever. So, disc golf's Leah Thomas moment. Two FPO players speaking on the condition of anonymity because they didn't want to lose their sponsors. They didn't want to lose their livelihood just for speaking out, or just even having questions, simple questions. So they were talking about D-Glow. It should have been a great moment. One of the female competitors told me once the crowds had gone. Now I'm just reading. I have some chunks of quotes from the article. Again, go ahead and read the whole thing. But I believe that the chunks I'm going to read to you encapsulate everything from the article. There's some nuance in there. I tried to keep that. But, if I miss something, again, please go read the full article. And I will be giving some of my commentary at the same time. So, talking about D-Glow, it should have been a great moment, one of the female competitors told me once the crowds had gone. But then the thing ended and the winners weren't a male and a female. It was basically two males. That's what they said. This is about Natalie Ryan winning the Discraft Great Lakes Open. So there was that. Talking about the current FPO tour, the current female tour only came about around 2016. A well-known female pro told me. Again, I don't know who that could be. That could be any one of a number of female players out there. It could be Paige Pierce. It could be Sarah Hokum. It could be Kristen Tatar. It could be Haley King. I don't know. They've been touring, though there'd been a tour going on since 2000, but those days, even most of the top professionals had side jobs. That's nothing new there. That's my little commentary there. There's nothing new there. Back in the early 2000s and before that, you played disc golf on the weekends, even as a pro, and that was it. Then you went to your 9 to 5 and then came back. The men's game was probably economically more viable as a full-time occupation by the early 2010s, but the women's game really wasn't viable until a few years ago. So yeah, the timing of this is interesting. It's just all too convenient that now is when trans women decide to jump in and make a splash. Yeah, I guess. I mean, one thing I will say is that yes, it is more economically viable to just make your living as a touring pro disc golfer. So there is that. However, the population percentage-wise of trans people in general is so small. It's not surprising that such a niche sport didn't have someone try to go pro who is transgender. Because let's face it, you have an incredibly small group, 0.05-ish% of the US population, I think is one stat that I keep hearing. And then you have a niche sport that just recently crossed 200,000 members in the world. So, not surprising. Who knows? Then they go on, they talk a little bit more about that. Nothing really. That right there was basically their venting. It seemed like a lot of this, I mean, it was talked about after D-Glow. These interviews seemed to happen after D-Glow. I would be curious to know who these people are, who these women were, who this author talked to, because, I mean, they didn't win. And so I know when I don't win, especially if I'm close, I'm pretty pissed about it. It has nothing to do with anything. I mean, provided that it was a fair match and both people showed good sportsmanship, I'm a little more okay with it, but you got to give me some time. And who knows how long. I mean, I could understand, you missed out and you didn't get whatever cash you thought you should earn. You didn't get the place you thought you should be in. So talking about scrambling, one of them said, this was Mary. Now they called them Jane and Mary, or Mary Jane. I don't believe they had a last dance, but I don't know. They said, I would say one of the biggest advantages of the male-bodied players is their ability to scramble in tight situations when a disc goes off the fairway. To just stand there and blast a shot through the woods, Mary tells me. I've seen both trans player Chloe Alice and Natalie Ryan do this. They're just standing still and throw the kind of forehand shot that I've never seen a female throw under pressure under perfect conditions. And maybe that's true, maybe that's not. I'm not sure. I haven't noticed it during the times when Natalie Ryan was on coverage. I don't believe Chloe Alice has really been on coverage all that much. When it comes to form, they had this to say, which I thought was pretty interesting, though I cannot verify it. So I haven't looked at this. This is something I'll probably look into in the offseason. When they're talking about form, what makes it worse is that Ryan's form isn't even that good, says Jane. If it were, she'd be outthrowing us by even more. So while the rest of us spend years refining our form, trying to keep up and get more distance, she's been in the sport only 3 years or something? And she's already said publicly, oh, I've got my form down. I don't need to practice that. I have heard that on the Nick and Matt show. I believe that that was said. Natalie Ryan had said that, where it's like, all right, well, but I think you should. Everybody's form could use some work, I think at some point you do need to work on your form. Someone who has been quite vocal, and that's going, before I move on, that's something that I do want to look into. Is it really that bad? Is it not? I don't look at people's form all that often. And sometimes it's because the camera angles don't allow you to look at someone's form, because you're watching someone do their run up, and just as they release, they cut to a different shot where you don't quite to see the nuance. You don't get to see the details in there. Maybe Natalie Ryan's form is fine. Maybe it's not. I don't know. These are two FPO players that are saying it's not. I'll leave it at that. Jennifer Castro did say that she's a vocal person that's an amateur who had this to say. I personally know of women who refuse to sign up for events if a transgender is playing. Not because we hate them, but because we feel we have zero chance. So what's the point of wasting our money on registration fees? I can understand that. I can understand the frustration. And as it stands right now, I mean, I don't know. I have seen, I started trying to write an article about it and it just got too difficult. Um, Talking about the science, and there isn't a lot out there. And a lot of it is contradictory. So I don't know. That's the thing. Um, she goes on, except in cases where players who already listed as male, she before I go to that, I did not quite copy this all the way. At this part of the article, Jennifer Castro talks about how she was questioning the PDGA, not getting any answers, things were getting deflected. Basically, used a different email and asked like what pretended to be a transgender disc golfer and asked like what do I need to do? And this is the response from Elaine King, who is the lead member, the top ranking person on the medical committee. Except in cases where a player who's already listed as a male seeks to change status to female, transgenders, and I quote, transgenders don't need to submit anything up front. The PDGA is just taking their word that they meet the criteria medically. Now, I thought, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I misread something, but they have paperwork on the PDGA website that I thought you had to fill out. If you are going to be a transgender disc golfer going whichever way, you had to fill this out and say, yes, I am on estrogen, I'm on testosterone, I'm on these suppressants, I'm on these, whatever. I don't know what I don't deal with medication, period, in my job outside of Tylenol and ibuprofen. So anything outside of that is well above my pay grade. And when you come into very special endocrine hormones like that, that is so far out of my pay grade that I don't know. But the fact is that the paperwork you should be getting signed, it says you have to get it signed and say by your doctor saying like, yes, this person's been doing this, this, and this, and they're on this, this, and this. I always thought like, hey, if someone intentionally, unintentionally forgets to take their medication, shouldn't we be testing for that? Like, I don't know how long that takes to affect for effects to come back in. Like if it's male to female and you forget to take your testosterone suppressants or whatever it is that it's called, like how fast does those strength gains come back? Should they be tested essentially for illicit substances for, doping essentially? Should they be tested weekly, monthly, 2 months, 3 months? How often? Like, I don't know. I don't know. And Chloe Alice has admitted on TikTok, and I will have the link in the description below, that she has forgotten to take the testosterone, her quote, pretty pills, for days at a time. That's allowing testosterone to get back in the system and give you an unfair advantage. Might as well just do testosterone shots. Like, that is unacceptable. Like, especially publicly admitting that. I've always had my questions. I'm like, hey, if this is how we're going to go, we need to have safeguards in there. And I thought we're 2 steps ahead of where we are. Holy shit, we are not. This is a shit show, to say the least. And it gets better. Let me tell you, it gets better. If they don't play at the pro level, so it's not like, this is still Jennifer Castro. I don't play at the pro level, so it's not like my livelihood is on the line, Castro told me. Unlike the pro women, I can speak my mind and say what they'd be saying if they felt they could. Sorry, words are hard right now. Sorry. This moves us on to a new PDGA board member who I definitely did not vote for because I did not like the platform that this person represented. And that is Laura Nagtegaal. Nagtegaal. I apologize. I'm horrible with names. It's nothing personal. Trust me. Go back and listen to the first time I tried to say Lisa Fakis's name. That was awful. However, in 2019, shortly after transitioning to female self-identification, I'm not even going to try. Laura, they have the last name, entered the Amateur Masters Women 40 Plus World Championship and won by 21 strokes in a field of 17 players. And on the PDGA board of directors, someone who has a final say, and I would say a conflict of interest in this situation. So this is shortly after transitioning. So definitely the studies that I have read and that I have seen say it takes at least 2 years for strength to go down if you're transitioning to a woman. I use that lightly, but whatever. If you're transitioning, it takes about 2 years. This is short. This says shortly after. This could be after identifying, self-identification. So could be total load of crap. So the PDGA board of directors have several board members that are sympathetic with the complaints of the women who want male bodies excluded from female protect. Now I keep saying male bodies because this is direct quotes from the article. So don't hate me for that. I'm just quoting it because just use their words at that point. Who want male bodies excluded from protected female categories, but they also feel reluctant to act unless their stance is publicly supported by a critical mass of high-profile players, which the high-profile players don't want to say anything because they don't feel like they're supported and they're going to get crapped all over. And it's a vicious cycle. So that's something where, as disc golfers in general, we need to say, like, hey, you need to look into this. I'm not saying you have to ban someone or do whatever. I think, there's MPO for a reason. Mixed Pro Open. So if that's where if that's where that ends up, that's where that ends up. But I have a hard time believing that's where that's going to end up. Jane goes on to say, my experience is that about half of the trans women are really fun to play with. Jane tells me. With the other half, they have this really obvious masculine energy. And so you're constantly being reminded that you're basically playing with an amateur level male. It's gotten to the point that even the players that I personally like who are transgender, I can't play with them. I don't watch them throw. I don't watch them putt. The sight of it reminds me that I'm in an unfair situation and it makes it hard for me to maintain my mental game. I can understand that. That would, to a certain extent, like I have been thrown on cards with pros before. And while it is not an apples to apples comparison, and I know we're playing a different division, it's hard to watch someone who is a far better disc golfer or a far stronger disc golfer just lace a drive. And then I'm sitting there going, well, shit, I can't do that. This sucks. And then I don't play as well. So I can only imagine if my livelihood was on this. And then if I'm playing in a super unfair advantage, like, if I was to play a competitive round against Paul Macbeth, that ain't going well. I mean, 0-1 might be okay on the tee before he tees. I'll go first and maybe it'd be okay. Mary goes on to say, I've been playing this sport since I was in kindergarten. Mary says, I was always small, but I didn't care what the sport was. I would take on any girl, any woman. But then with this thing happening now, it's different. No matter how much I work out, that'll never be enough to have the physical advantages of a person who's a male and can be strong without going to the gym. I actually had a candid conversation with my sponsor the other day for about an hour on this issue, Mary told me. And toward the end, I said, if I can just be honest and blunt as possible, I think the situation is disrespectful because no man will ever understand or know what it's like to be a woman. But in the end, this is the end of the quote here. But in the end, she still wasn't given permission to go public with her concerns unless it was done in concert with critical mass of other tour players. And here's the problem we're running into is players aren't allowed to ask questions. Players aren't allowed to raise concern. Valid concern. Like, I think what Mary is saying here is a valid concern, a valid question. And like, hey, I think we should look into this. Maybe it's just a, you know, it happens to be that this person is, Natalie Ryan happens to be just a good disc golfer. Maybe. And it has nothing to do with being transgender. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but it's worth looking into. It's worth raising those concerns to go, hey, before FPO gets totally thrown to shit and we're in over our heads, maybe we get this looked into. Maybe we just start asking some questions now. See if there's a grad student out there who wants to do some legitimate research and just go like, hey, let's look into it. Let's research it and see where the chips and go where the chips fall. If it happens this way, that way, whatever, but we looked into it and we can definitively say X, Y, and Z. Yes, they can. No, they can't. Yes, it's fair. No, it's not. I think that would be interesting. Back in January, if you all remember, about a dozen female players avoided the highest female, the FPO division of a small Alabama tournament, apparently in order to protest the PDGA's laissez-faire approach to trans women. This, when that move left Chloe Alice playing alone in that division, this is where Paige Pierce jumped in back in January. She had this big, long post, covered it here. It was interesting, to say the least. Covered it here back in January when this all went down. It was originally misrepresented what they were saying. Shocking. But then the truth came out like, hey, we've asked the PDGA for clarifications to do this, this, and this, ask these questions, and they have just completely ignored us. So we just said, F it, we're not doing this anymore. So Paige Pierce wrote this in an Instagram post. This isn't an event I would have typically been playing, that I was been being that it's during my off season, and it was a lower tier of an event. I wanted to talk with you all about why I choose to play. It was a local event, and I started to hear talk about around town that there was a big group of women that had initially signed up for the event, only later to drop out of the division because one of the competitors is transgendered. I want to stop there and take a breath. I'm not sure my exact opinion on what should happen. Should we have a separate division? Should we test hormone levels of every competitor? I don't know, but we should. But should we ban them altogether and leave them behind? Hell no. Again, nobody was saying that. No one was saying, hey, we need to ban them. It's, hey, I think we should play in the correct division. Say what you will about ratings-based divisions. They're there to help keep appropriate levels of competition there. Age-gated divisions are there to help, 40 divisions, Pro 40 divisions, Pro 50, 60, Masters divisions, all these. They're there for a reason. So FPO is there for a reason. I'm sorry for my language, but I feel very strongly about this. We are all part of the Frisbee family. We're all doing our part to find our own happiness. As I write this, I'm finding that I am going to make a New Year's resolution. Whenever I hear someone passing judgment towards another, I won't nod or let it pass. I will stop them in their tracks and remind them that we are all human. Let's spread love, not hate. But as Jane and Mary see it, Pierce's declaration was a low blow and even a betrayal. What's more is Paige Pierce suggested that those behind the act of protest were motivated by hate and their desire to ban transgender people from the sport, which both Jane and Mary see as a complete misrepresentation of what happened. Someone also commented on there that said, just wait a couple years until a transgender player beats you. Let's see what you have to say. Now, Natalie Ryan has beaten Paige Pierce, I think it was 3 or 4 times this year, including the 2 wins and a couple other times where that happened. Since this post has happened back in January, Paige Pierce has been oddly silent on this. So who knows what's going on there. Supposedly, at the end of the article, there is a petition that will be making its rounds among the touring women, putting a majority opinion in public. That's all it said. It's just a majority opinion. So whether that's yay or nay, keep them in, kick them out, or boot them to MPO, I don't know. But that is supposedly what's happening right about now. This article was written and published September 28th. I don't know. Keep your eyes open, keep your eyes peeled. What remains to be seen is whether the PDGA officials, faced with such a document, will respect the validity and authenticity of the biological female experience. I don't know at this point. Yeah, it's a tough one to say the least, obviously. But not being able to ask questions, not being able to voice concerns in a constructive way, again, not specifically targeting one person and saying, person B is a stupid head. It's, I have concerns about the trend of transgender women in disc golf playing FPO. I have a concern that, they might be stronger. They might have this and this and this. And then the PDGA can go out, do some research and go, hey, on this one, we find that after X amount of years on hormone suppressants, things are fine. And concern 2, 3, 4, 5, here you go. Here are your answers. And I think that would all clear things up. Right now, the PDGA is burying their heads in the sand and just going, la, 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 I can't hear you, la, 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 la. That's all they're doing. That is what they're doing right now. And the fact that there is no medical records at all. So you have to, and this is one of the parts that I found very interesting. I took a screenshot of it. I forgot to write it up here. I took a screenshot of it. Where did it go? Right here. This is the email that was sent to Jennifer Castro, saying, if you meet the criteria to play in a gender-based division, then you can register with the PDGA as F or female. You are under no obligation to discuss your personal information with anyone. No one may challenge your eligibility to play in a female division unless they can provide evidence that you may not meet the requirements. Note that a player's appearance is not capitalized, not a basis for a challenge. Some transgender women have voluntarily elected to provide proof of their eligibility to the medical committee in confidence. In doing so, any potential questions about their eligibility to play in that division could quickly be settled. However, this is purely voluntary and not required. Holy shit. That's all I got to say to that. Okay, so based on part of the other thing that we read, I have already registered with the PDGA. But if you are not registered with the PDGA, you could just show up, have a full-out beard, tattoo, giant muscles, show up to FPO, register, pay your fees, and be Josephine or whatever, and show up, and they cannot stop you from playing FPO just because based on your looks. They won't allow that, which the only way you can come up, unless this person tells you hey, yeah, I'm just BSing you on this. I'm not doing this for real. Unless you can somehow prove and get into their medical records and violate HIPAA laws, get their doctor to violate HIPAA laws and say that this ain't happening, you're SOL. That blows my mind. You are inviting issues, bigger issues into this by not saying you got to fill out this paperwork. You got to do it. That's it. You got to fill out this paperwork. And if we find out that you're not taking your medication as prescribed by your doctor, you're out. Sorry. You got to do it. I thought we were there already. I thought we were there where you had to fill out the paperwork, where you had to prove that yes, this is happening. But no, we're not even there. That's completely voluntary. This is a load of crap. I thoroughly enjoy watching disc golf. I really enjoy watching FPO disc golf. I find it absolutely fascinating because I look at that and go, that's probably a decision I would make. Watching MPO, even today, Anthony Barella threw like 500 feet. And I'm like, yeah, maybe downhill with a tailwind, like 100 feet downhill with a tailwind, maybe. I'm happy to break 400. So, I don't know. It was interesting. Now, yeah, I don't know. Now, what was it? Statmando was at, I think it was GMC, had the radar gun, and none of the transgender women threw outside. They weren't the hardest throwers there. It was still like Paige Pierce and Katrina Allen and Ella Hansen, I think, if I remember correctly, going off the top of my head. So who knows? I don't know. But that is one case to say like, hey, no, Natalie Ryan is fine there, provided. And it seems like, I will say that everything that Natalie Ryan has posted online and talked about says that filled out the paperwork correctly, takes the hormones every day or as prescribed. I'll say it that way. Takes the medication as prescribed and goes from there. Chloe Alice, on the other hand, does not. Self-admitted. Not doing anything crazy here. There's a link to the TikTok video. So, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but this needs to get seriously looked at. And I trust the PDGA to royally screw this up. Absolutely screw this up. But on that depressing note, I think this is where we leave it. Hopefully you all enjoyed the show. Hopefully, if you did, go ahead, leave a like, give a thumbs up. It really helps out, helps other people find this. Leave a comment down below. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, and I get it. Who knows? Maybe I'll even get a channel strike or whatever. But I'm done censoring my thoughts about this. So screw it. I don't care. If you don't find this channel on here anymore, if you want to watch videos, I'm also on, I followed Russell Brand over to Rumble. And yeah, go check it out there. It's exactly what I post on YouTube, so whatever. You can also listen to this on the podcast form wherever you get your podcast. So, when you get a bad tree kick, when you get a great tree kick, you need to thank Jesus. If you get kicked deeper into the woods, well, you need to repent and reflect because you have transgressed against Jesus. Thank you all for watching. As always, I've been Joe, you've been awesome, and I can't wait to talk to you all in the next show.